So welcome back, and here we are on the last lap of this year's International Social Prescribing Conference, and what an incredible 2 days it's been, and I'm sure you're all extremely exhausted, so don't be alarmed, we will be ending this ahead of time, before 5 o'clock. And in this section, we're going to have some interactive polling to see exactly what you think about the future. We're then going to hear a bit about some patient experiences, and also some great poetry again from Harula. But before we go on to this section, may I just give some real thanks to everyone that's been part of making this such an amazing conference. And first people to mention are those supporters, the National Academy of Social Prescribing, NHS England, and the University of Essex. And then the contributors and the co-chairs and the people offering the prizes, the prize winners, everyone who's been involved in this conference, because this has been a truly, if you like, group work. And some of the questions, some of the challenges have been absolutely fantastic, and kept us all on our feet, and I think helped to make the conference rounded, challenging, and also informative. And also, you know, I want to thank Andre and his team for having kept us on the rails technologically. It's made it wonderfully simple for people that are a little bit Luddite like me this year, and I'm very grateful for what they've achieved as well. But without more ado, and thanking all of you, I want to go over to Marie, who's going to ask us really what we think the future is going to look like. Marie.
Thanks very much, Michael. Yeah, and I'd just like to say a big thank you to everyone as well. The conversations on Twitter and everything that's gone on, it's been a real group effort, hasn't it? And a real community feel. So I'm going to do the last screen share of the day, and I know if anyone's done screen sharing the last 2 days, it kind of fills you with that weird, nervous feeling. But we're going to do an interactive poll. Hurrah, I got there. Hopefully you can see that. Michael, just nod if you can see that for me. Yeah, thank you. So can you go to menti.com, and when you get there, put in the code 82834821. So you can do this on your phone, you can do this on your computer. So just go to www.menti.com and use the code 82834821, and hopefully somebody's putting that in the chat for me as well. And what I want you to do, and fingers crossed this is going to work, just want you to do 3 questions for me. One of them is, what 3 words describes your concerns for social prescribing going forward? What are your concerns? So I'm hoping, so we're just going to give it a moment whilst people start to do that. So please do that. So we'll just... Michael, do you have any concerns? What would be your areas of concern at the moment?
Well, do you know, I think my greatest concern is they say, you know, the things that you wish for don't always turn out right. In fact, I haven't said that right, but something along those lines. We're trying to get social prescribing generalized, systemized, and comprehensive. But there's always a danger once you do that you lose the passion and the flourish behind it, the thing that made it going in the first place. So you can homogenize it, you can kill it with love, you can strangle it and lose its essence. So it's, for me, it's something about, as it becomes orthodox, as it becomes mainstream, not allowing it to lose that passion, that belief, that leadership that we've been, you know, hearing about over the last few days. And that would be my concern, I think, because sometimes you can become established and you can become part of the woodwork and cease to be, you know, active in the way that you were. Anyway, I think I can shut up now, because we're getting actually quite an interesting consensus here, aren't we?
Yeah, I think it's great. So I think each time we do this, I think funding sits in the centre. I'm not sure if it's quite as big as it was, but there's some really good stuff coming in. So people just keep putting your thoughts in. And actually, this has just gone live on Twitter as well. So this poll will be open for 7 days. And it should just be, our scheduled tweet should just be going out into the ether. So if people aren't at the conference, they can still joining, and we're really sort of getting going now. So thank you everyone for going to Menti and putting the code in. So there's some really interesting stuff. I mean, I see words like disconnected workforce, too much standardisation, loss to process, but capacity, funding, sustainability, lots coming in. So we're going to give it just a little bit longer. If you've not contributed, feel free to put those in. Yeah, it's still moving. Thank you.
Interesting, isn't it, Marie, that people are concerned about sustainability? Because with Ian telling us yesterday it was irreversible, there clearly are nerves still as to whether we've actually entrenched it as much as we need to.
Yeah, I still have that moment that I think someone's going to go, yeah, and we're going to disinvest. And I hear on the ground, you know, there is disinvestment in services when, you know, you think you've just got it going. So it's very different around the place. The idea of the conference this year was really to really set the stall out and say, you know, why aren't people social prescribing? Because there should be no doubt with all the stuff we've heard that it's the right way to go, but there is still that gap, isn't there, that implementation. So we've got 54 responses, which is great. And, you know, funding's not moving in the centre there, is it? Lots of stuff are moving around it. Maybe that's a real kind of metaphor that everything moves around the funding.
Yes.
Yeah. So just give it 10 more seconds and then we'll go on to have a look at the next one.
Interesting. Buy-in is
quite
but it's interesting that buy-in's quite a big issue too, isn't it? You know, and I wonder what we mean by buy-in. Is it buy-in by the media, by the public, by the politicians, or even by the patients? I suspect still we haven't quite got the message across of this move from the biomedical to the psychosocial as generally as we'd like to.
Yeah, this is it's a massive, a community change, isn't it? A system change. It's just reworking how we do things. And you and I are 7 years in, and you know, these things don't happen in 7 years, I don't think, to completely transform. What I would like to see, my concern is the short-term funding all the time that really stops it. It breaks the relationships, it breaks the service, and just as stuff's getting bedded in. And we saw from Ken Hock this morning, they had a 4-year programme with that idea of designing, implementing, testing, tweaking. And I think if we could commission for 5 years minimum, that would make so much difference. I'm going to move to the next slide. You can keep putting your responses in here, but I'm just going to see what's happening on the next one. So we're asking people, what opportunities do you see for social prescribing going forwards? So we've had the concerns around sustainability and funding and you know, not over systematising it. It's hard to embed something at such a level and keep it individualised and personal, but we're doing a good job. So what are the opportunities? So growth. And no one thing's dominating here, so that's interesting. What do you think, Michael, to the opportunities here?
Well, I'm watching community and connection, a bit like an election night here, isn't it? Seeing how things are going. But I think community and connection are going in an interesting way. And it reminds me of the debate we had earlier in the day, where some people were saying that link workers employed by primary care networks were sometimes not as well resourced as some being employed by the voluntary sector. But then others were saying that link workers employed by the voluntary sector sometimes were disengaged from their clinicians. And I think Sian made the very important point that this becomes in time an unnecessary division once you've got community and you've got primary care and you've got the local authority and you've got the VCSE sector working together. Once you've got community, you don't have those dialogues. But it was a very interesting debate in the early years of social prescription, which I had with the Department of Health, which was which should it be channeled down? Should it be channeled down through the voluntary sector, or should it be channeled down through primary care, with the danger that wherever it was channeled down became divorced from the one that it hadn't been channeled down? But I think we're getting to a stage of sophistication in this country where, as I say, community collaboration connection is enabling us to overcome that.
Yeah, what I've been really impressed about in this conference, as much as we speak to people and you sort of get a feel on the ground, which is a bit harder whilst we're being virtual, this year really noticed the sort of maturing of schemes and just how those relationships that started maybe 5 years ago have stayed and matured, and it's the people and the champions and the relationships that have then enabled the collaboration. And I just feel like we're on the verge of actually realising now the sort of the value and impact. So if the funding can stay and keep that collaboration there, then I think the next 5 years are going to be really exciting. But what I see on here is there's a huge amount of opportunities. Look at all of that. Collaboration at the heart of it, which is fantastic to see. But so many different opportunities there.
I agree. You must have a fiver on collaboration, I think, Marie, because every time you say the word, it gets slightly larger.
Collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. I think we've said that word a million times in the last 7 years. I think that was our modus operandi, was to encourage collaboration, and it is the only way. I remember Andy Burnham, when I was speaking with him last year at our conference, he said we have to collaborate our way out of the pandemic. You know, to move forward, it's going to require collaboration. And
that's the message, wasn't it, yesterday from Darren Halifax, right down at ICS level, that unless we do collaborate, unless we create the relationship, you can form any strategy you want, but it won't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I think that's been really helpful. We will analyse this and be able to compare it to ones we've had from previous conferences. So I'm just going to move on to the final question. I think I know what's going to happen here, but what 3 words describe your conference highlight? And I am not surprised to see Marmot at the middle there, and Michael Marmot coming as well. But there's some really great words here, Michael, although they keep moving around as I try to grab onto them. Inspiring, well, that's brilliant, and sharing, informative.
But I think also international, because I feel this year we were more international, and for good reason, because international is actually happening, and it's happening fast. And as I was telling you earlier, I was on a Zoom to Iran just earlier. You know, this really is going fast. It's making such progress, and hearing from Finland and from Canada and from Australia and Portugal, it was so inspiring earlier today. And I think, you know, testament to the fact that this is, you know, getting legs internationally and really moving things. I see Marmot is now back, and it's going to be interesting to see who wins international Marmot in the end. But what I loved about Michael Marmot is he's actually normally quite a dry old stick, you know, quite as a social scientist. But, you know, I mean, there was massive emotion there, wasn't there? Maybe we do that as we get older. You know, we just have to up the volume. But it was tremendously impressive, wasn't it? And very inspiring.
It was fantastic. What I found really good was I don't know whether it's a wake-up call, but the description of really, you know, putting 500,000 children in poverty between Wednesday and Thursday, the reality of the decision making on high and the impact of that, but also, you know, the most deprived parts of our communities suffer the most, pay the most, all of that. And I just think, Michael, we need to work with Michael Marmot going forward with his new collaborative as well, and all work together. Wouldn't it be great if we could have Marmot ICSs, as somebody suggested yesterday, and Marmot cities everywhere?
Yes, yes. He's been going a long time, hasn't he, as well? And I think it was great that he gave such a slap on the back for social prescribing, seeing us as really the movement that was going at local level to enable much of the things he wants to happen. And you know, that's quite an accolade, really, from a social scientist.
Yeah, yeah. There's lots of opportunity. There's lots of highlights here. The Canadian Institute's been acknowledged. The Faith Session, National Association of Link Workers, sharing PhD research. What's great, we've had real leaders share, and we've had students at the beginning of their process of being researchers. So it's great to have a mix of contributions. Oh, it's still going. This is great. Lullaby Project, A Twist My Neck, Motivation, Research, Knowledge, Global, Thoughtful, Recognition, Passion. Great. So I'm going to come out of this now. I'm going to see how I manage to stop screen sharing. There we go, stop sharing. So we should be back. Now I just wanted to check, have we got Jo with us? Has she not made it in?
She's having trouble, her laptop's died. She was going to try and connect on the phone. I've just sent her Andrea's phone number.
Okay, so what I think we might do then, because it would be great if we can have Jo join us, perhaps Michael, you would like to introduce our poet again. I hand over to you.
Well, yes, indeed. It's a great pleasure to, and I've just discovered that Harula's not so far from me. She's in Plymouth, and it's raining in both areas at the moment. But Harula, over to you. And you know, we've so enjoyed your poetry during this conference, and I think that, you know, social prescribing is about, you know, it's not just a mechanistic thing. It's about emotions, it's about feelings, it's about poetry, and you really exemplify that. So over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to begin by focusing on one of the highlights, actually, that showed up in that screen share, the international element that came through so strongly today, especially this morning. This is called Around the World in 80 Minutes. Folks near and far, this is your captain speaking. Hold on to your bandwidth. We're spanning the world in 80 minutes. From our launch in Singapore to down under in the far north, from dense urban populations to the more sparse and remote, the speed with which social prescribing is rising to meet the needs presenting is as fast-paced as a Singaporean walking. Diversity plus respect for unique local contexts, each version of the recipe will be seasoned differently. Adapting best practice with time zones no barrier when there's such hunger to connect, to learn, to share and improve. But evidence is no mushroom that grows overnight. Keep implementing what you found to be right while continuing to collect data to make it even better, supporting future generations to take the model further. With gratitude to elders, past, present, and emerging, let's celebrate the growth of global social prescribing. So, yeah, what a whirlwind world tour that was this morning. Incredibly exciting and inspiring. So this next one I've called A Signpost is a Piece of Wood. And this is in response to the call out for support for link workers in the work that they do. A signpost is a piece of wood. What can you do? What action are you taking? We're having an impact, we know that, but the vulnerable need to know they can trust us. We're professionals, not signposters. We need supervision, support, qualifications, help managing workloads and the demands of the content. This is hard work and heart work too. We're challenging inequality, championing social justice. What can you do? How can you help us? This deep-reaching workforce is human too. Some 33% have said they left because support was lacking. These are huge issues we're tackling. We love what we do, but again, I ask you, how can you help us? What can you do? All right. And I'm going to wrap up with this one, which I've called Dreaming Dreams with You. I actually wrote this at the end of yesterday, but it still very much applies today. And I think it wraps up all that I'm feeling after the privilege of having spent these 2 days with you all. Dreaming dreams with you. I want to make a quilt of you all. Wrap it round me for warmth and hope. Each square a story that reminds me our community is vibrant and varied. I want to make a map of you, study its pathways and contours to know I walk accompanied and guided and never need to face this journey alone. I want to make a garden of you. Take the seeds you've shared and sow them, grow them, nurture them until I don't feel so small anymore. I want to dream dreams with you. Celebrate those safe spaces that welcome anyone that may need reminding of their own value and support to take steps toward a better life. Let's stretch. Reach out, connect those maps, gardens and safe spaces like the stitches securing the squares of a quilt until its reach is as wide as the need for its comfort. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for listening.
Those were lovely words, Harula. And, you know, I love the word quilt because that's how it's felt during this conference. Even though we've been virtual, I feel that there is a quilt that is surrounding all of us and brings us together and creates a extraordinary dynamic, which I've never come across in any other conference. And it's to do with the people, it's to do with the mission, it's to do with the subject of that mission, I think. And you've absolutely got it in one, you really have. Thank you. I'm now going to hand over to Marie and Debs. Over to you, Marie.
Thanks very much, Michael. And Harula, I feel so calm. If anyone wants to do an N of 1 bit of research, I feel so calm when I listen to your poetry. It just feels so lovely to have someone distill this into these beautiful words. And thank you for being our poet in residence for the 2nd year running. Perhaps I can put an advance booking in for next year. And we will put those poems out, we'll bring them together and we'll put them out in our newsletters and things like that. So that's been fantastic. So we started the conference hearing from Daz Dula, his experience, and really wanted us to start the conference focusing on a person's experience. And we want to finish the conference focusing on a person's experience. Really, unfortunately, Jo G, who's going to be with us, Girl with a Bun, has just had a problem getting in and her laptop's died. But what I think we'll do is we'll organise to record a session with Jo and put it on the platform because I still want to hear Jo's story. But Debs is with us, and many of you have met Debs before or heard about Debs' story. Debs, you got to stage similar to Daz actually, who also said he was wanting to take his own life, and it was art that saved your life, that you said many times. And I wanted to just ask you a few questions, but I wanted to focus on not so much where you were at that brought you into picking up a leaflet to then start the arts and the paintings, and we can see the paintings when we see you, we'll see the paintings behind you. I just want to understand more about, from the point you started, what's the impact been? Because we talk about ripple effects, but yours has been, we're getting close to a tsunami, quite frankly. So take us through that impact in your life.
Well, I think the first impact really was identifying the illnesses in myself, and that's what the arts did. I've always felt I had this racing track brain, and the arts made that racing track stop. And that did one of two things. It allowed me to be aware it was there in the first place, because I've had it all my life, so I wasn't aware it you know, I could stop it. But then it allowed me to control my illness. So it gave me a completely different focus on my illness, and I was in control for the first time of it. And I wanted to do more art, and as you can see, I've done a fair bit of art. But it's about maintaining that wellness. It's about maintaining that racing track brain and stopping it from coming back and affecting me again.
That just reminds me of something Daz was saying, that he felt that he was able to have that level of control and live with his mental health, rather than somebody doing to him and telling him what he should do. So since you've got rid of this racing track or calmed it down, I think a lot of us can, you know, feel like we've got a racing track brain sometimes. What's happened in your life?
Gosh, there's so much. I have to pinch myself sometimes, and to remind myself just how far I've come. I've sold 162 paintings. I've had an exhibition at Canary Wharf in London. Last year I had a piece of artwork in the United Nations International Art Exhibition. I've done talks all over the country. I've been to Buckingham Palace, Clarence House, NHS Expo, and I don't say that with a big head. I say that as 11 years ago, I was an invisible service user. Nobody knew my identity. I was a patient. I was a patient number. I just had my diagnosis. I didn't have anything that I could actually pinpoint on. Now I've got an identity. I've got a purpose, and that's the key thing. People see me now, not just my labels, not just my diagnosis. And that, I think, is the key thing, that social prescribing treats you holistically. It doesn't see your labels. It sees everything. It sees the whole package of you. We are more than one thing. And that's what social prescribing allows me to deal with, the whole of me, not just labels or diagnosis.
Yeah. I love that. I love, you know, being connected to you, Debs, and just watching you continue to grow. I've got some really good news. We've got Joe with us on the phone. So can I hand over to you to chat to Joe, and we'll just revert to plan A. So welcome, Joe.
Hi, Joe. Can you hear us?
Joe's on mute. So Andre, can you unmute Joe? Let's see if we can make this happen.
It won't let us, sorry.
The anticipation.
Well, I'll just sort of continue till we can get her. But if you'd have told me 11 years ago that I would be sat here, that I would be alive, that I would have done half of the things that I've done, I would have said you need sectioning. But here I am, and I want everybody else to be able to achieve more than what they were led to believe. When I was told that I would always be ill, I would always be medicated, and I would never work again, I believed that expert. He had the answer to my problems. He was a psychiatrist. I looked to him for the answers to get better, and I felt like he'd thrown me under a bus. And I don't want anybody else to feel like that. And I mean, when I woke up from the overdose, I was absolutely livid that I failed. Nobody wanted to die more than I did. And I despise myself for failing so much. Now I'm really grateful that I failed. But that's the contrast of where I was and where I am. And a couple of weeks ago, I was asked to write a chapter in a book on inspirational women. And it was such an eye-opener for me, because 11 years ago, I was a patient number. I wasn't an identity, I wasn't a name, and I wasn't inspirational. But yeah, here I am. Hopefully we've got Jo.
Well, I can see Jo there, but I don't know how to take her off mute, and I'm just hoping that Andre could. Yes, she's off mute. So Jo,
Can you hear me?
Hi Jo, yes, we
Hiya.
can finally hear you.
Hey.
We shall overcome technical hitches. Jo, welcome. I'm handing over to Debs to have a wee chat with you.
Thank you, and thank you for stalling in my technical gremlin absence.
Hi Jo. Could you just tell us a little bit about you and why you chose creativity?
Absolutely. First of all, I'd like to apologise for my lateness, and the best laid plans is all I'm going to say for that. So I've always been creative essentially, but I found that when my mental health deteriorated after a series of fairly traumatic incidences back in 2010, I had no motivation to create. I didn't see any colour in the world. I didn't see any light. So creating seemed frivolous and pointless because my life felt like that. I had a very difficult time. I self-harmed a lot. I tried to reach out for help and felt like I was getting nowhere with things. And I tried to take my own life. And then I was pointed towards a community group that did arts. I took part in a project which was animation based, which is a love of mine. That animation project was only funded for a little amount of time. It was only a few sessions, but it reignited something in me. It allowed me to be somebody beside somebody with mental health problems. It allowed me to be somebody beyond the tablet taking labels that I felt like I was kind of examined by whenever I came into contact with anyone. So fast forward a little while later, I did more creativity. I taught myself to crochet, and I found that incredibly therapeutic because when I have, and I still do have, periods of self-doubt or worry or anxiety, like phone calls not working, crochet allows me to be creative in a repetitive even functional way. There's something about it that allows me to come out of myself. So today I am considered, I call myself an artist, which is something I never thought I would do. I have a piece that is part of a digital exhibition that is around mental health and creativity. I'm going to be having a piece as part of a physical exhibition this summer, and I feel like a totally different person, and all of that has come from the journey I've been on, rediscovering myself through art and social prescribing.
Yeah, I can really relate to that, Jo, because people with my journey, I feel like I've got new eyes in my head. You know, I physically and metaphorically see things very differently to what I did when I was that service user on all that medication. So a lot of what you're saying, I can relate to.
Yeah, I mean, for me, a lot of the medicalized or traditional treatments that I was being pointed towards, and you know, the assessments and the endless appointments, and it was very transactional. I was a risk assessment that happened to be walking. I wasn't seen as a person. I wasn't seen as a whole person.
I was a laundry list of symptoms to be fixed, and my life is more than that. And because I didn't see worth in it, and these people didn't reflect that I had worth, there was nowhere to go. My other half loves to say to me, sometimes I wish you could see yourself as I see you. And I think that's what creativity does. It allows me to see myself outside of myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still feel like that now. 11 years, I still feel like an imposter and that I shouldn't be here. And I revert back to all that negative language that was told to me. How important is creativity for maintaining positive mental health?
It's vital. It's an intrinsic part of my everyday wellness practice. I know that sounds very sort of new age, and but it's true. In so many ways, every single day, my life is affected by creativity and colour, and it wasn't before. So whether it's something that I can see in the house that I've crocheted, and I remember where I was at that time and where I am now, or even if it's doodling whilst I'm on the phone, or designing a course that I think other people will enjoy, it's everything. It's everything, and it's everywhere, and people don't realise that creativity doesn't just mean getting art materials out. It's making music, it's gardening, it's even choosing what you want to wear. These are all expressions of who we are, who we really are, beyond a medical diagnosis and some notes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the crucial thing, certainly in mental health, is to find us and to get from that service user label to, I mean, I say now, I start with, hello, my name is patient number, and then I end it with, I can finally say, hello, my name is Debs. I'd just like to say thank you, Jo, for bearing with us, and it's great to have you chatting with us today. I'll pass back to Maria.
Thank you very much, Jo. Thank you so much for persevering with a tech challenge there. We started with a tech gremlin. We're kind of almost finishing with one, but well done. And just hearing yourself and Debs talk, I really wanted us to finish the conference feeling that we're back to the people that we're trying to support, and not getting lost in all the system problems. Michael, last thoughts from you.
Well, I thought that was extraordinary. I mean, we've heard from 3 people who would not be with us otherwise for social prescribing. And extraordinary, Debs, the way you describe yourself as being livid when you came round, and you are inspirational. You all show the art of the possible, and what wasted things would there be if this wasn't done. Look, there's something you haven't mentioned because you're all far too humble, but it's wonderful that you have the courage. Not many people feel they're able to tell their story, go in public like you are. I mean, it's absolutely incredible that you can be ambassadors for this, and I know quite how difficult it is. So congratulations. And these areas you've mentioned, like getting control, like people seeing as you are, they're crucial, and I'm sure most link workers will connect with that, what they're trying to do. So thank you. And I suppose one of my last thoughts is I came across another word in this conference I'd never come across before: ecotherapy. Isn't it a wonderful term, ecotherapy? And that's what I'm going to be doing from now onwards. Now, it's time for Marie and I to go, but Marie has really been the brains and behind this. I'm just the fluff at the end of it. And I really feel that at this point it's time to present an award to Marie. So I'm going to give her the most important award internationally that can be given to anyone, which is the College of Medicine bow tie, the unisex College of Medicine bow tie. And Marie, that is yours now, and you can wear it with pride, and I'll give it to you next time we meet.
I'm jealous.
Next year, Debs, you never know. All things possible. Well, yes, I mean, thank you all for coming to this conference. It's been so inspiring, and you know, that's really all I've got. So Marie, have you got some last words before we trickle away, as it were?
Thank you, Michael. I look forward to getting that bow tie. When I get a socialised, medicalised T-shirt from Mo, I can put the two together, and then that will be my expression of who I am. Just a thank you to everybody. The steering committee for the Social Prescribing Network has done a huge amount of work behind the scenes, and the research committee, but everybody has. And I feel slightly tired, but I feel really inspired again, and it kind of lifts us up every year, doesn't it? We get caught in the struggles of the issues, and then we get together again and remind ourselves how amazing, and the progress is phenomenal compared to last year. So I just think, please carry on, everybody. You're doing a marvellous job. So it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from her.
And goodbye to you all.
See you next
Bye-bye.
Massive thank you to everybody for helping save mine, Joe's and Daz's life. We really need your help to help us get to this point. So thank you ever so much, everybody who's attended, who's here, who's helped, the network. It means so much.
Thank you, Debs. What a great thought to end on. So yeah, so here's to next year. So bye-bye. Thank you.